going to take what we learned yesterday about converting between decimals and percents to figure out how you can order numbers that are written as fractions, decimals, and percents. So when comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents, the one and only step you need to know is that you first need to write the numbers as all fractions, all decimals, or all percents. And I had you explore that idea when I read 5 statistics aloud about the US, and all 5 of those statistics were given to you as a percentage, so when it was time to put the numbers in order from least to greatest, it was super quick. I then tried to give you them, depending on which class you were in different formats, just to show you and highlight how if they were, some were fractions, some were decimals, some were percents, it would have been much trickier to do that quickly. So a problem type for you tonight with your practice is to compare two numbers and tell which is greater. So your work that you need to show is how you converted them either both to percentages or both to decimals, depending on your preference. To convert a fraction to a percent or a decimal, you need to bring that denominator up to 100. So in this case, you'd multiply by 5 because a percent is a comparison to 100. And then you circle the number that's greater, in this case 16%, and this one 79%. It's not enough just to circle the answer, you need to prove it to me by putting two numbers in the same format. So you did this one in class on your own. It took you a bit of time to figure out how to get this fraction up to 100 or 28%, and then you circled 7/25. You circle the original number because that's the number that was given to you in the problem. Turning it into a percent is the tool we use to be able to compare. This one you did as well, much quicker because one is a decimal, one is a percent, so it was either change this one to a percent or this one to a decimal and compare the two, and 94% is greater. This one as well, you're getting faster and quicker, but this one was a real stumper because you kept trying to put percent on the end of 80. This is just 80, and had I given you these two numbers before class started today and asked you to tell me which is greater, you would have without hesitation said 80, but you're starting to kind of overthink some of these problems, and 17/20 has a value of 0.85, and 80 is already in its decimal form. It's just 80. And by the time you got to this one, you were like, can I just circle the answer? I know it right away. No, still prove it to me, and then circle the answer. And then we talked about how this applies to the real world. Sometimes you're given a situation where you're given numbers in 3 different formats. So in order to be able to compare and come to the conclusion of who made the fewest shots, you need to first get them all in the same format. They chose to use decimals. I showed you how you could do it using percent, which is what most of you tend to gravitate to. And then we circled the answer that matched. You did this one on your own. You guys were very successful at converting these all to the same format. The one thing that got most of you was you circled sister because you just kind of took the question from the last slide of who made the fewest shots and thought it was the same thing. But this time it said who made the most shots. So slow down, pay attention to those fine details, and especially when it comes to where that question mark is, that's usually the clue for which number you're searching for. In this case, you made the most shots at 75%. And then we talked about how you could fill in a table. I said be careful because a lot of times when you're working from percent to decimal, you take 6%, you tell me just 0.6, you get lazy, as I said. You stop using the 2 places to the left. And then when you're done, it asks you to list the 5 states in order from least to greatest, not the numbers. So make sure you use the state names and not the numbers. You guys were very successful at filling in this chart, and most of you are like, I'm done, did I get it right, and I came to you and I said, of course you did the chart correctly, it's wonderful. Did you do what the task asked, which is to put the counties in order from least to greatest? So again, go back, make sure you're answering all parts of the question, but at this point you're getting to be quite the expert. Times 5 to get this one to 5%, times 4 for 8%, because 2 times 8 is 8, 1 times 5 is 5. So the process is becoming more fluid. And then the last problem type was you were going to be given a set of 3 or 4 numbers, all in different formats, and asked to put in order from least to greatest. Again, we need to put them all in the same format. I chose percent. But when you write your final answer, you need to write them using the original numbers. The percentages aren't the numbers that were given to you. That's the tool you're using to get them in order. Use the fractions, use the decimals, put them in order that way. That's how you get the correct answer. And then on this one, I wanted to talk to you because sometimes every so often we get a fraction that can't be brought up to 100. So there is another strategy. If you use decimals, it's a one-step process. If you're a percent person, it's a two-step process. You would have to do 7 divided by 8, and you get 0.875. And then you're going to use your knowledge of how to convert decimals to percents, moving the decimal 2 places to the right to get its percent format if you like to use percents. It doesn't happen often, but there is a strategy, there is a way to go about that instead of just using our quick T100 rule. So that's a very quick overview of today's work of comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents.